This is House Planning Help episode 122. Hi there, I'm Ben Adam Smith, and this is the podcast for you if you're interested in self-build, because I'm exploring what houses we should be building in the 21st century and trying to break down the major roadblocks that may get in our way. My personal goal is still to create an energy-efficient home before I turn 40 now this August. Doing something different in today's podcast, I'm putting local knowledge to the test. Can it help me uncover a plot of land? Land being one of those major obstacles. Either you have it or you don't. Maybe you're lucky enough that you've already got the plot or you've had it for some time, or it's just easy to buy where you are. Where I am, no such luck. And I've talked for a while about getting proactive. Today, I'm actually going to do that. And so you're going to hear how I got on. I dedicated a whole day, a 9 to 5, trying to tap into local knowledge and just work out, is this worth doing? Just spending that time so that you can maybe take a leaf out of my book. We'll see how we got on. Step number 1, though, I was still at home at this point, and I called local architects and builders, big and small. I've never actually done that before, and I didn't know whether it was going to be useful. So, do they sit on land in preparation for their next customer? I quickly discovered the answer.
People come to us once they've purchased, or if they're looking, so we've got a plot of land, can you tell us what we can get on there?
My husband's always been looking, so I know for a fact that it was really difficult to come across.
Years ago, you might have found something, or I would have known something, but seems these days that everybody is scratching around, and a lot of it never appears on the market, does it?
Spent about 45 minutes making calls and discovering all the architects were in, but all the builders were out, as you might expect, on site. That's when I moved into stage 2, step 2, going out on foot. I live in a town centre, so of course this makes sense. I targeted shop owners, pub landlords, just people who I felt were well connected. I'm not going to bring you all of the conversations because many of them just fizzled out or they had nothing to say. Understandably, I was going in there and asking them about land. Every so often, though, I came across someone who was either more interested or would come up with a good idea, good suggestion. Let's give you an example of that. I spoke to Chris in Albany Radio, who actually fired a few questions back at me.
If you could find a piece of land, are you prepared to pay the price for it?
Yes, I have funds available, and I have been looking in the local estate agents. I don't think money's...
got a property to sell as well?
I've got a property to sell. I've got extra money on top of that. It's just finding something that's right. For the energy efficiency side, you're looking for a south-facing plot. So there are all these extra sort of things. And I'm not expecting any miracles from this chat. No.
But you want to stay in the Hertford area. You don't want to go out towards the villages or to
I'll go to the villages a little way. Probably I prefer sort of north and west.
Because I think that's perhaps where you might find you might need to knock something down to build what you want. Yeah. I personally can't think of anything that in Hertford that's not already being built on. Because every bit of land that there is being built on.
What do you think of that?
I was born here. I was born at the hospital up the road, so I've seen it grow, but it's still a big village. It's still a very friendly place. It's attracting people from outside the area, from London, because they've had 2 stations. So it's pushing our prices up, so none of our youngsters can afford to buy.
Yeah, well, I think that is a very, very common case. And what's bizarre for me is that it's not as if there aren't new houses being built here. No,
the new flats over by the station, you've got 1-bedroom flats there going for 230,000. The only people I know that have done like you want to do are when the parents have had a large garden and the children have put a house in the garden.
So who do you know who's done that?
Oh, well, there's several of our customers that have done that for their children. Because obviously some of the houses up in Queen's Road and all up there massive, got big gardens, but their properties will go for $1 million if they sell. So, but I can't. No, I've not got that knowledge. I don't go around looking for pieces of land.
And finally, is there anyone that you think might help me? Either someone that you just think has a lot of local knowledge, or I don't know, anything off the top of your head. I'll leave you my phone number.
Well, it might be worth approaching the local churches, because a lot of the older people still go to the churches around here, the big church over the road, and that's generally where all the big properties are, that side of the town. It might be worth asking there. awful lot of older people are on their own now, living on their own, is if you've got the money to buy it.
Thank you to Chris. And she's certainly come up with an idea that I hadn't considered before, which is what this is all about, isn't it? I've also got a tip for you in case you go out on your own scouting mission. Make sure it's at a time of the week or day when everything is open. Different towns, villages, they change, don't they? I did this on a Wednesday.
So that was quite a good chat in Albany radio. I've come across the road to what I was hoping was going to be another good probe of local knowledge, but Marshall's appears to be closed, just having their post delivered. Don't know whether you can help me. I'm making a podcast today about trying to find a plot of land to build a house.
Right.
You must get around and about. Have you seen any potential plots, or this is probably a dead end? But
not really. I mean, most of the places that have been sort of empty, they're building on already. So yeah. Other than that, I don't really know. No.
Fair enough.
All right. Okay.
What's your name?
Sophie.
Thanks, Sophie.
Okay.
Have a good day.
And you.
While self-builds might be few and far between, I bumped into Martin from Jewson's in a builder's yard. Of course, Jewson's being the building materials supplier, but I just bumped into him randomly as I was wandering around, and he assured me that there are people active on their own projects.
I've got 5 or 6 on the go at the moment, from Royston down to Hoddesdon, so Hertfordshire area is booming with self-builders.
And how have the people who have built in Hertfordshire got hold of their land? Is it just by throwing money at it?
Very expensive. Yeah, 1 or 2 have had land for a good number of years and they've waited to the right time to start development. Another couple have got land from relations moving into back gardens where they've got the big gardens, which has happened to a property in Old Welling recently. So yeah.
That's one of the routes that I'm actually looking into, and it's tricky to know, how do you find someone who's willing to sell a portion of their back garden?
I haven't got the answer to that one.
That's okay.
For me.
All right. Final question then. Is there anyone else in this area who you feel even just knows the area really well, who might be able to point me on to someone else with?
I don't. It's just knowing the general builders. They all seem to know who's got what coming up before it even goes to planning. General local knowledge with local builders. But it's knowing at the right time when to get in there with that land.
Next, I caught up with someone who I would say has the best knowledge of my local area out of anyone that I can think of. Peter Ruffles is a local county councillor who also loves his history, and immediately he came up with various schemes that I didn't know about. We've edited this, so all the detail has gone out of this, but the detail is very, very handy. Thank you, Peter, for my ongoing research. And his first piece of advice was really to continue on the theme of this podcast.
Chat to people, because it is going to be chat, isn't it, at your point, because professionals marketing land they're to a penny in Hartford, but probably not where you want to be. There is, of course, the buy-in possibility up at Waterford Heath, where some eco homes are coming anyway, bespoke, but it's going to be probably a tarmac project. Tarmac are certainly the owners, with planning permission already for 7 or 8 eco homes.
So it's their land, or have they got a product? It's their
land, and this planning permission was given some little time ago. It seems very slow coming. So I'm just wondering whether there's a door, possibly, but that's not to do what you've just described you'd like to do.
Well,
but
I'm
anyway,
just looking at the options today and chatting to people.
Another option, I suppose, is to talk to a chap who has had plans for some years to build his own eco home, and that hasn't materialised as far as I know, but has had planning permission. So that might be just worth discovering more about from your point of view. Other than that, there's another planning application turned down recently, not for an eco home at all, but for quite a large property. At the top of the hill are 2 Edwardian houses. They're semi-detached. Both have gardens. People have wanted to develop them for some time that have lived there and have been turned down. Recently there was a turn down, but because the built envelope and in-town stuff is now easier than it was, I would think a permission would be forthcoming before long, there. Now, it may be that you want to talk to the owner and say, how would you like to work with me on eco-build? Maybe.
Well, you see, this is why I knew it would be interesting coming to speak to you. Now, do you know all of this because you're acquainted well with the town, or, how have you got this knowledge?
Well, yeah, I'm interested in picking it up, but I think each example I've given you has been because I've been on the district council and town and have watched planning sites coming in, because I've given you no virgin territory there, Ben. That's the thing.
So should I be going to the council as well and asking around there? I mean, who would I speak to?
I'm sure they would encourage. I think I would go to someone like Tim Hagyard, who's a senior planning officer. You could go to the director. All of them are going to be interested in eco for its own sake, because they're the people they are, and because they're in the profession they're in as well. And we're well blessed with officers who would sympathise with the movement, let's call it.
One more question then, and it's really on your knowledge. You have seen Hertford change over the years, and from a lot of the conversations I've had today, it seems very weighted in terms of developers. It's not as if there aren't new houses being built in Hertford. There are lots of them. It's just that none of them seem to be open up, or maybe not none of them, a very, very small amount for people that want to build high quality homes.
That's true, but there are examples where, for example, number around there, which is a grand home, a family home, and it's being, the back garden, rather sadly but inevitably, is being developed by the son of that home at the moment. So he may have contacts in the developing world. His father certainly did, but not he was a builder rather than a modern developer. So things like little patches like that are being attended to. People are very keen to make the most of what they've got as well, which means extensions are coming and attic conversions at a rapid rate. That's probably not too bad a thing, broadly speaking, because although I'm a townie, I actually, when anyone asks me what the best thing about living in Hertford is, I don't talk town centre especially. I talk about the closeness of the rural countryside to every home. And many of those homes are, for newcomers, built on the fringes as Hertford has gone out. But all of them, everywhere you look, you can walk out of your front door, put on some wellies, and be in a very different place within minutes. That's the great beauty of Hertford. But if we're going to preserve that, we've got to develop internally, as it were, within the built envelope as far as we possibly can. And that's what I think is happening. So those policies are, through market forces and through planning controls and advocacies, that's the pattern. I'm happy with that. I'd like to build more affordable homes in all sorts of locations. I meant to say that as a politician, but I say it quite genuinely, because people are having to leave Hertford. They can't afford to stay here, so that's important. But I think you've got to just talk around and discover. And if you spot a site, find out who owns it. If there aren't many, but if you can see just a corner, an additional place where it might work for you, obviously Land Registry will tell you the individual person to go to. It's a pity about developments when they all look the same, but I think we've got some quite good developments which don't look the same, which are done by big companies.
Some interesting thoughts from Peter. And although he is a counsellor, which I'm sure helped him give me some of those insights just off the top of his head, I do believe that he's naturally interested in talking to people and loves his hometown, which is very, very valuable. It made me think of this, that we're really looking for connectors. If you haven't read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Tipping Point, I'll just read you a paragraph about this section when he talks about connectors. What makes someone a connector? The first and most obvious criterion is that connectors know lots of people. They're the kinds of people who know everyone. All of us know someone like this, but I don't think we spend a lot of time thinking about the importance of these kinds of people. I'm not even sure that most of us really believe that the kind of person who knows everyone really knows everyone, but they do. So that can be my book recommendation of the week, Malcolm Gladwell and Tipping Point. Someone else that I feel is a connector, just because I have had many chats with her, is my local hairdresser, Lisa in 1409. It's where we go next.
I would say go everywhere, go to definitely all the local estate agents, particularly Lanes, who does for land. I would personally pop letters in, very respectful letters into people's houses to say would they like to sell their gardens or properties, or if they know, and just talk to everybody. And the social networking of talking to people like myself and then them passing that message on. And if anyone said, oh, we're thinking of selling the back of our garden or whatever like that, because a lot of people do. My partner, actually, that's how he built his house in Hartford, by getting a piece of land from someone, as you well know. But my thing would be to talk to everybody, and I know a lot of people, and you do, and Kay does, so it's about just spreading the word and seeing what comes back, because there are certain pieces of land that are too big, that are good for small developers, not people who just want to do a self-build, as we can see all them going up and being sold very, very quickly, that they're building 3 or 4 houses on. But if you're talking about one particular small plot for one house, then yeah, I would just spread the word and ask everyone I know to tell me.
Yeah, another good idea in there, letters through doors. And I've heard that idea before. In fact, it's even been on my proactive list of, I must get round to doing that, maybe another podcast in there somewhere. What was interesting, once I stopped recording with Lisa, she told me another story of when she'd actually done this to try and search for a property in a particular area. And there was no response afterwards, and actually she found a property through another means. Then she got a call from someone who was looking to sell their house. So again, it's this potential that keeps coming up, that you never know who you speak to, where that conversation is going. So in terms of my 9 to 5 day, I'm probably around about 2 o'clock, and I decided to switch to the car. The reason was to follow up on those leads that Peter had given me, and I also wanted to track down Ian, who was working on a site, a remodelling project. And so I asked him about how he got his land.
I was looking online to see for different plots coming up. Several came up, which I just missed out. And I think I was just in the lucky place at the right time. This one came up. I see it actually in the paper, it was in 2008 at the time. And so, yeah, I had money ready to go, which is the main thing. If you've got money ready to go, then I was first in. So that was it, basically. I knew straight away. I was probably lucky to get that.
So your insight was really the local paper, which doesn't necessarily mean it's even been advertised anywhere else.
Yes, it was in the local paper, which I was quite surprised that it wasn't getting more interest. There was just one other guy at the time. But yeah, I was lucky to get in there.
If you were doing it today and wanting to build your own house,
yes,
how would you do? Would you give up? Would you have to move somewhere else?
There is plots out there. And I've even looked recently. Again, if you've got money to go straight away, it might not be in the town area. You've probably got to go out a little bit. But there's definitely plots out there. And it's just a matter of being patient, because it will happen. It will happen. If you want to do it, it will happen. And that's what I'd say to anyone. I'm tempted to do another one. But unfortunately, I built a nice place and I quite like it there. So that's my downfall, that I actually like it there. Whereas I wish I could say, right, I'll move on to the next one, because it's quite exciting, but hard. So yeah, I mean, I did it when I was young. I did one in a group with a whole lot of people. We in the 80s we did it at like self build, and that was like 28 of us. We built 28 houses. It took us 2 years. Now that was really hard, and once I'd done that, I realised doing one on my own was a lot easier. Don't rely on other people. You can source things yourself. And, obviously everyone's on a budget. So that's quite important to get that bit right. You can waste a lot of money, probably at the end, if you're trying to finish it to such a high standard, whereas you need that money to get the thing built first. And then you can gradually finish it off in time. That's what I would say about any build, really.
And that pretty much gets me to the end of the clips that I want to share with you. Hopefully you get the idea. I chatted to lots more people and some of the same themes came up and so forth. I think the last bit of audio I want to share with you is some audio from me towards the end of the day. I'm just about at the end of my time now. It's starting to rain. I do have my car with me. This morning I was very much on foot. This afternoon I've used the car to go between a few locations and check out some plots. Bizarrely, I bumped into the person who owned the first plot that I ever looked at and discounted because I thought I didn't like the area. So that was interesting, bumping back into him again. And then also I've been told about this one here that's had a planning application that was been turned down that might get it next time if it's for a good idea. But unfortunately, I'm in my car, so if I step outside, it's a really busy road. And this is quite a long walk into town. So I can't see this one working. Slam that door. Couple more points before we finish up today. And I felt that the afternoon was less productive than the morning. Maybe doing a full day of this is tiring. Perhaps getting into the car was a bad idea. However, I did need to move from one area to the other. Walking it would have maybe taken just as long. The other thing is you'll find it so much easier if you don't have a microphone like I do. You'll probably get some very interesting things that are told to you. For example, I heard this a number of times about estate agents who favour clients and then they do deals behind closed doors really and the land never makes it onto the market. So that's interesting. My conclusion at the end of all of this, can local knowledge help you find a plot? Well, it didn't really help me. Well, it hasn't so far. However, it didn't hurt either. So it must be beneficial. And if nothing else, I bet you'll meet some interesting people. And I think that you could do this a different way as well. Perhaps you're going out in your local town and you're interested in that area, just ordering a cup of coffee, maybe try there, or when you're getting a haircut, like I was chatting to Lisa. So just do it in a much more casual way. And you never know where it might lead. So the show notes for this session, much shorter than normal, as you might expect, but you can still go and take a look. houseplanninghelp.com/122. I have a question for you as well. Has this worked for you, or do you know of a case where it has worked? Be great to keep the conversation going. And I'd also like to know what you think of this particular episode. Do you like the style of it? Do you like seeing me as the human guinea pig? houseplanninghelp.com/122. Scroll down to the bottom. Also on that page, I'm going to put a link to Michelle Nelson's podcast, the Build Your House Yourself University podcast, because she interviewed me recently and I really enjoyed that. She's based out in Texas and doing her own research, her own exploration on what it takes to build a home. My call to action today, since we've been talking about land, is to go and check out our free module on finding land. We've collated all of the best tips and you can go and take a look in the hub. So houseplanninghelp.com/hub. That's me done. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciated you being there. The House Planning Help podcast is produced by Regen Media. Content that matters.